IBM has a very interesting reputation. Historically, it was synonymous with engineering excellence and innovation, and many people view IBM as a prestigious company to work for. While nowadays, some in the software engineering community seem to kind of belittle it and say it's not a good place to work. I worked at IBM for over 2 years, 2 years as a full-time software engineer, 1 year as a part-time internship slash co-op thing my senior year of college. So I just want to give my opinion, and I'll also share my actual salary growth during this period. It seems that generally within the software engineering community, people cite the same few reasons for being wary or not liking IBM. The first is the pay and benefits. Yeah, there's no doubt that the pay and benefits don't match the crazy high salaries of some of the other big tech areas, but I'll get to my actual salary growth in the 2 years that I was there, and I think it's actually better than you would probably expect. The other reason is that it is just an aging business. So obviously IBM is old and it's been around for a lot longer than the other big tech companies. And because of that, I think it has gotten more and more bureaucratic and more PO, like product owner or project manager driven, as opposed to being engineering driven. So I can't dispute that engineering culture is definitely not very good. Other things to note are people say that you're going to be working on older, like legacy technologies, but that's not necessarily the case. If you choose your team wisely, you can still work on modern, interesting technologies. It just depends on the team. IBM is very different from other tech companies in that there are a lot of lifelong IBMers or career IBMers who have been working at IBM for their entire career or like 20 years. And that's pretty interesting because most other tech companies have a higher churn rate. And it also goes to show that IBM doesn't really seem to pip or fire people very often. If you look at the layoffs, they definitely haven't had nearly as much as some of the other traditional big tech companies. So that's something else just to keep in mind because that's kind of why things get run in a more old-fashioned way in a lot of teams. Before we start talking about my salary growth while at IBM, I just want to be clear and point out that if you're already able to get interviews and eventually like land an offer at one of the more prestigious tech companies, go for it. But in my case, IBM was the best option I had. I wasn't even really getting interviews, recruiters weren't responding, or I would submit applications and just never hear back for the more prestigious tech companies, and IBM was a great stepping stone. Starting off with an internship, which was June 2019, I got paid $26 an hour approximately. It might have been $26.25 or maybe $26.50. And then they also offered $2,000 for the summer for housing expenses. You could either take the $2,000 or the corporate housing, which I didn't know at the time. I kind of just asked when I was interviewing. I was like, do you guys offer housing? And they were like, yeah. And they signed me up for that, which was kind of shady, I feel like, because they didn't make it clear that $2,000 was going to be the amount for the housing stipend. Anyways, that was a pretty big L because the corporate housing had us in a bedroom where there was 2 twin beds per room. So that just kind of sucked. But anyways, that was the internship salary. My formal internship ended in August, but since I went to school in Chapel Hill, which is not far from the RTP IBM office, I continued to work around 5 hours a week in the fall 2019 semester. I ended up getting the full-time offer in September of 2019, and it was for $88,000 base and $10,000 sign-on. I was obviously pretty excited because it was the first full-time offer that I had gotten. I ended up shopping around for a few other offers. I did get a few other offers, but none were actually higher. Nonetheless, I still went back to IBM saying that I was considering other offers, and they bumped my offer letter to 92 and 15 sign-on. So definitely worth asking. You never know till you try. And that was in November of 2019. I ended up accepting by December, and I had a start date scheduled for mid-May 2020. Early 2020 was a pretty scary time because COVID was so new and we weren't sure how the economy was going to do and how we'd react. So my start date actually got pushed back a full month pretty much from May to June. And this was a huge bummer because I was working part-time for IBM during the school year at $26 an hour. And I still started working 40 hours a week for them in May at my initial start date, but I was only getting paid my intern salary. But when June came, I was doing the exact same work and my salary just jumped because it was for the full-time offer. As you'd expect, I didn't get any pay increases in the next few months, but in May of 2021, so almost at the 1 year mark of when I was supposed to start full-time, I got a very small 3.5% increase, and that put me at 95K. At this point, I was still working for the team that I had interned for, but the manager who I had great rapport with had retired, and two other people on the team that I really liked working with had switched teams, and the work was becoming less and less technical. So I had asked to switch teams, and in doing so, I also asked for a pay bump when the team switch goes through. I had to wait a long time, but eventually I got the new offer from the other team, which was a pretty significant pay jump to 107K. This was January 2022 and a pretty significant pay bump. I didn't ever ask for a specific number or a range even, and when they got back to me with this number, I was surprised because it was still the same level. Like, I didn't have a change in title or band, as they call it. But either way, I was thrilled to be working on a team with more pay and cooler technologies. Just 4 months later, there was the yearly salary increase in late April. Considering I just joined the team in January, I didn't expect anything, but I actually did go up from 107 to 111.5. Now, at this point in April 2022, I knew my girlfriend was going to be graduating with her master's degree in May. And because of that, I didn't start actively recruiting, but I did respond to recruiters who were reaching out. I ended up getting an offer from Microsoft in late May of 2022, and I brought it back to IBM just to see if they would bump my salary and let me go remote. Within 4 days, my manager got back to me and did bump my salary to 115, and he did okay me going remote. Long story short, I ended up taking the Microsoft Atlanta offer, but as you can see, I think IBM is actually far more competitive with actual salary growth and career growth than you would expect and people say. Keep in mind that I was still in the same band, so I didn't have a level change at all. I think there's a lot of wiggle room between different departments and orgs, even within the same level. And I don't regret my time there at all because A, I learned a lot and got my first working experience. And B, I also was able to do so while finishing up a master's degree. I did have a few classes left that I had to do while working for Microsoft, but I never took 2 classes a semester while at Microsoft. And that's about it. Hopefully you found this interesting. If you enjoyed this, please give me a like and subscribe. Thanks.